Hey, what's up guys, MugenLord here, and today I want to talk a bit about Microsoft and the Xbox and their new strategy that they're shifting over to when it comes to taking a lot of their exclusive games and putting them on their competitors' consoles, which is multi-platform with Nintendo and also the PlayStation 5 itself, which have a lot of fans talking about it and displeased about what Microsoft is doing. Pretty much people saying is the writing's on the wall. They're pretty much a software developer, no longer a hardware developer, since they're not putting any emphasis on it. And you have Microsoft saying themselves, like, wait a minute, you're getting great games on every platform you could possibly get these Xbox games on. So who's the victim here? So before we even dive into this article, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. So we're going to dive right into it. Now, just to let you guys know, I'm going to make a separate video pretty soon, just talking about, you know, my relationship with the Xbox brand ever since it was released with the original Xbox. And I have so much to talk about when it comes to that and how I identify with the Xbox brand growing up and why it was so much potential left on the table and never fully realized. But I digress. Let's go move on. So from this article here, from Bounty in the Comics, it says that the Xbox new platform strategy receives praise from former PlayStation execs, putting amazing content on more platforms. Who's the victim? Now, you can also say that Sony executive saying that is because they're a Sony executive at some point, and them saying this is like, you know, they're from the PlayStation camp, so you can see why they would say, hey, that's a good thing. So many people can poke holes in that as well. But yes, it's kind of hard, you know, to how you would stand and where you sit when it comes to this. But it says former PlayStation executive Adam Boyce and Sean Layden have shared insights into Microsoft's new multi-platform game strategy, which involves releasing formerly Xbox exclusive games like Forza Horizon F and Indiana Jones and Great Circle on the other platforms like PlayStation 5. But the question is, they're saying that it's not, you know, what's wrong with that? But the question is, ask them, would they be okay if Sony did the same thing and put their games on Xbox? And I would love to see what their response is at that point. But we're going to move on with that. I find it kind of funny. So it says TangleWork Games, time exclusive release of Ghostwire Tokyo to PC and PS5 back in March of 2021, raised questions about Microsoft exclusive release strategy. After all, by then ZeniMax, Tango Gameworks, parent company, had also been officially acquired by the American tech giant a week prior. Microsoft was evidently not prepared to break an exclusive contract for the sake of obtaining an exclusive Xbox release. Besides, Xbox had already been dabbling with multi-platform releases for a number of years, with games like Gears of War 4 in 2016 or all the way back in 2003 with ports of Halo Combat Evolved on Windows, Mac, OS and X and OS X. Now the thing is, we always talk about this, like I don't really count them as, you know, when you take an exclusive game and put it on PC, I don't see them as the same. I don't see them as the same because to me it doesn't. I guess you would say it still can affect consoles, because if you have a PC, then just get the superior version. But I've never really seen that as, you know, yeah, it's not an exclusive game when you going from the primary console to the PC versus you taking an exclusive game from one console and then putting it on your competitor's console. So I never really consider that I still consider it still being exclusive because the other consoles don't have access to it. Only the PC does. But hey, I mean, I could be wrong, but that's how I always felt. So it says since then, and with the massive popularity of Xbox Game Pass on Windows, gamers have found it easy to play their favorite Xbox games on PC. Considering that Microsoft owns the Windows operating system, and that's another thing, it's still exclusive in a sense because it's on the Windows operating system, and then you have Microsoft Xbox. So I wouldn't say that it's not exclusive to Xbox when Microsoft owns the Windows platform. You get what I'm saying? So as I move on, it says, it is easier to rationalize the semi-exclusiveness, as I just said, in their release strategy. On the other hand, Tango Gameworks, following the game Hi-Fi Rush eventually landed on Sony's hardware in March of 2024 after its initially and supposedly exclusive launch. The game's short-lived exclusivity was followed by Obsidian's Grounded and Rare's Sea of Thieves on the PS5 in April of the same year. Now the thing is, when it comes to Grounded and Sea of Thieves, I don't really have an issue with that, because those are more like community-based games. I wouldn't call them MMOs because they're not as big as MMOs, but I can see that those games like Sea of Thieves and Grounded on multiple platforms. I can definitely see that, because the whole goal is a social type game, and to get as much out of those social type games, you know, the best thing to do is to try to grab everybody from all kinds of platforms in order to take advantage of the gameplay elements itself, the social aspect of these games. So I never really found that much of a big issue to me when it came to Grounded and Sea of Thieves. And then since Xbox themselves has also become aware of this trend, as not only did last year C Division boss Phil Spencer confirmed that there are no red lines regarding Xbox games on other platforms or vice versa, but he further declared just a few days ago that it doesn't really benefit people to gatekeep games. Yeah, so they're changing their whole mindset and everything. But the question is, can we ask Sony to do the same thing? This is what you have to ask. Can we ask Sony to do the same thing by putting their exclusives on the Xbox or putting their exclusives on a Nintendo platform? And that's where it comes into play at when we having this argument that, you know, these games shouldn't be gatekept, and yet Sony is keeping their exclusives only to their console. Like I said before, I'm not really counting PC, but only to their console and not their competitor's console. So it says, I quote, "I allow people to play games. That's a good thing, not a bad thing for this industry, and especially in an industry that we all see is struggling." But come on, they're struggling for all different kinds of reasons. We already talked about it. It's a lot of things going on in the gaming industry: bloated budgets, poor management, and of course, when it comes to the culture war aspect, you got a lot of that DEI and also wokeness that's been interjected and baked into the company itself. So there's a lot of things going on of why the industry is struggling right now. So it says Spencer opted in to Xbox Era on February 15th. Both games costs are growing, so keeping gate like restricting where those games can be played is not helping the games themselves. And I think we should optimize for the best games that we can have in the industry. But the funny thing is, you don't see Nintendo having this problem. And why is that? We keep talking about how developers keep talking about the cost of things, especially Microsoft and Sony themselves, but you don't see Nintendo having that problem at all. So there's a lot of restructuring that has to be done with a lot of these studios, including Sony and Microsoft themselves. So it says, to this end, this is apparent shift in the company's operations has drawn praise from two former PlayStation executives, both of whom see the development as a generally positive one for both players and the overall industry. And I'm going to ask again, would they say the same thing, and would they be fine if Sony did the same thing by allowing their exclusives to go over to the Xbox? That's the funny part. So during a recent interview with Gamertag Radio, former PlayStation executive Adam Boyce remarked that not only was the move a positive one, but that those who disagree with it were simply playing a game of tribalism. Okay, we're going to ask again. Would you be okay? Would he be okay, Adam? Would be okay if Sony decided to take their games and put them on other platforms? Then we're going to see if this whole thing of tribalism is a thing, you know? So I understand why traditionalists are looking at that being like, I don't like change. I want it to only be where I wanted it to be, said Boyce. And that's a bit where my logic gap starts to break, because when Phil Spencer and his team are putting amazing content on more platforms, who's the victim? He added. I asked a lot of people, who's the victim? And there aren't any, except for people who are like, I only want it bought here, and that's what I expect. Similar sentiments are shared by former PlayStation chairman Shaw Layden, who compared this potential change to Sega's metamorphosis into a successful software company. And this is where we're getting down to the nitty gritty of all this. Yes, he's talking from a standpoint of Sega's metamorphosis into a software company. They're pretty much saying that, yo, Microsoft at this point is a software company. This is why they're okay with it, because their competition is out of the way. Because if you ask them, would it be okay to put Horizon Zero Dawn on Xbox and God of War on Xbox, I guarantee you they would have all kinds of excuses and all kinds of reasons why, you know, they shouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's the fact is that their competition is out of the way. Despite them being ex-executives, they're still from Sony. You know what I'm saying? So it says, I quote, multi-platform is a strategy, particularly in a world where the cost of development is increasing so dramatically, op-ed Hayden, while making a recent appearance on the Kiwi Talks YouTube show. What does it do to their brand? It makes the conversation harder to create the FOMO, fear of missing out. You're trying to do that by bringing everyone to your platform by saying if you're not here, you're missing out. But if it's available on all platforms, that's one of your market strategies you can't use. I quote, we've seen it before, he recalled. I was in the business when Sega bought their Dreamcast titles to the PS2. In time, then Sega became a software owner. See, this is what I'm talking about. He's talking from a sense where Sega was already out of the business with the Sega Dreamcast. They were already going. So this is technically not the same thing. And this was so funny about this. It's not the same thing. Microsoft still has a console. They still competing against Sony and Nintendo. So to try to compare it to the Dreamcast, which has already been, Sega been out of business already. So it makes sense why these games will be on those platforms, be on the PS2 or be on the Nintendo GameCube or be on the original Xbox. That's what I'm saying. This is so funny. And then it says, we've seen it before. Is that in the time Sega had became the software only company and have had a great transformation in that sense. So it does has historical precedence. Yes, when they were a software company. Microsoft is not a software company. They still have a console. They have hardware. So it says, as the gaming industry evolves, Microsoft multi-platform strategy signals a potential transformation of the Xbox from a hardware-centric platform to a more fluid gaming brand. The growing pains that gamers will have to suffer during the potential transition into a world where Xbox is no longer a plastic box anymore may be harsh, but industry veterans like Adam Boyes and Sean Layden suggest this shift is both strategic and potentially necessary. Yes, because the competition is out of the way, that Sony don't no longer have to worry about Microsoft at this point. And as I said before, I think at this point when it comes to Microsoft and the Xbox brand, I think that the Xbox console itself, I think they're going to still create consoles, but I think that now consoles and the hardware itself is going to be more of a luxury, or more of, if you are a die-hard Xbox fan, then hey, you can get this box, you know, and sit in your room and play your Xbox games on it. But we are a software company, so it's kind of like a hybrid where they are technically a hardware company, but they're more so acting as if they're a software company. But if you want to have that Xbox pride, here's our machine or whatever. And I think, in my personal opinion, what they'll probably do is they'll come out with different tiers of Xbox machines depending on the specs and stuff like that. I think they're going to try to do something like that in the near future, but that's not, I think, is going to happen. They're still going to create hardware, but hardware is not something that they're going to push heavily. It's something more so along the lines is, hey, if you love the Xbox ecosystem, you're going to stick here and you're going to play it on here, but other people can still be able to play our games. So I think that's what they're going to be probably going to trying to do. They're like a hybrid. Now the question is, will Sony do this? Because both these executives are saying how much of a good idea it is, but would they say the same thing, or would they comment the same way if Sony was to turn around and do that? So, you know, there's a lot going on here. And as I said before, there will be an Xbox video, an Xbox Pride video, a pride that I had, of Xbox being an American brand, a Western brand that can actually compete, especially back in the day. And I had a lot of pride in that, being an American and having an American console that can actually compete, so stay tuned for that video. I'm definitely gonna be working on that pretty soon, so be out on the lookout for that. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you believe what's going on with Sean Layden and the other exec Adam Boyes said about this, and do you think this is a smart strategy from Microsoft themselves? So definitely leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe button for more game content here on this channel. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.